Të dashur miq, takohemi sot në datën 3 maj 2020. Ju flas nga Kafshari në Tiranë. Sot do të bëj një emision shumë interesant. Personi i ftuar i cili do të bisedoj me mua është zonja Anne Khodabandeh. Ana flet nga Britania e Madhe. Ana është një ish mujahedine iraniane e deradikalizuar, e cila ka braktisur organizatën terroriste të mujahedinëve iranian shumë vite më herët, dhe që nga momenti që ajo është deradikalizuar dhe ka braktisur jihadin e MEK-ut, ajo është një aktiviste e të drejtave të njeriut, e cila mundohet pa rreshtur për të çliruar nga kampet terroriste të MEK-ut disa qindra shokë dhe shoqe të saj, të cilët mbahen akoma peng në kampin e Maryam Rajavit në Manës, këtu në Durrës në Shqipëri. Ky emision apo ky diskutim që unë bëj me Anën është një diskutim që shpresoj që do të shihet shumë, do të shihet nga një sër mediash, shërbimesh sekrete dhe ndër të tjera do doja që të përshëndes antiterrorin me zotin Gledis Nano, që do ta shohë këtë video, ministrin e brendshëm Sandër Vlleshaj, kryeministrin Edi Rama, shefin e stacionit të CIA-s në Tiranë, nuk e di emrin kush është, ambasadat e ndryshme që janë të shqetësuara dhe ndjekin aventurën e Pandimajkos dhe Edi Ramës në bashkëpunimin që Shqipëria bën me organizatën ish terroriste të mujahedinëve iranian, dhe normalisht që do të përshëndes edhe zonjën e nderuar të kultit të mujahedinëve Maryam Rajavi, që do ta shohë këtë video me laps në dorë dhe do të na përkthejë. Tani, personi që do flasi me ne sot, zonja Anne Khodabandeh, është para shumë një nga personat më të urryer të MEK-ut. Ana portretizohet si një agjente e vevakut apo e ministrisë së dëgjon çfarë ministri është ajo, e Mojsit, nuk e di unë çfarë do të thënë Mojs, prit. Ministry of Intelligence and Security of Iran, edhe Ana tregoj si një 007 iraniane që është në rescue mission to break the freedom fighters apo luftëtarët jihadistët të Maryam Rajavit. Për shumë nga ju, sidomos shumë nga ju gazetar, sidomos ju që ndoshta u kaftuar Maryam Rajavi ndonjëherë në kampin e saj në Manës dhe ju ka trushpëlar me rradhat e saj dhe të Pandimajkos të tmerrshme Anne Khodabandeh, sot keni momentin që të shikoni se kush është zonja Anna. Hello Anna, I just made an introduction about what we are going to talk about. The introduction was in Albanian. I explained to our Albanian viewers, for those who do not speak English, something about what we're going to talk about. So I told to my viewers that I'm going to talk with Miss Anne Khodabandeh about who is a British lady, an ex-Mujahedeen, who have abandoned this ex-terrorist organization many years ago, and now she's a human rights activist who is campaigning a lot for freedom of many of her comrades who are still being held as captives in the MEK camp here in Tirana in Albania. I mentioned in the interview that I made about you that MEK accuses you of being an infamous Iranian agent of Ministry of Intelligence and Security. So for MEK, you are kind of an Iranian 007. So I expect you to introduce yourself to our Albanian viewers, to the anti-terror police, to our Minister of Interior, Mr. Sandër Vlleshaj, and to our Prime Minister Edi Rama about who you are, what you stand for. And after this, we're going to talk about a petition, and I'm going to give you the questions about the petition after that.
Well, thank you. Yes, that's an interesting introduction. And it kind of taps into really what we're going to be talking about, which is the methodology which MEK use to kind of keep their position in Albania. As you're saying, you know, I was with MEK for about 20 years and left them around about 2 decades ago. And having left them, I realized how every single human right on record has been denied to the members by the leadership. And because I spoke out against the leaders, like everyone else, I'm only one of a long list of agents of the Iranian regime who are essentially anyone who criticizes this group is given this label from yourself, Jazexhi Thanasi, Jack Straw, the MP, Anna Gomez, the former MEP. We're all agents of the Iranian regime, according to MEK. What we need to ask is why. It's not a joke. It's not funny because they are making very it's character assassination, isn't it? You know, and this is why people like Jazexhi are taking them to the court.
I'm sorry. Let me just interrupt you. I'm also planning to take these rascals to the court because they have put me at the same group with Jazexhi Thanasi. But my problem with them is that when they attack me without names. Their mistake with Jazexhi was that they used one of their ex-terrorist spokesmen called Behzad Safari, who looks like Speedy Gonzales. I mean, they have some funny mustache, short, dark people. They look so exotic for me.
Olsi, these people are very dangerous. You know, he might look like Speedy Gonzales, but these people kill. You know.
Yeah, I know that. But what I wanted to tell you is that I'm also planning to sue those rascals, but I'm trying to find a name among them who will dare and come in public and will make me an Iranian agent. And then I'm going to fight these criminals to the end in Albanian and European courts for their character assassination that they're doing to journalists like me or Jazexhi Thanasi. I'm a journalist who went to China, and I've been attacked by the Communist Party of China for revealing the truth about the concentration camps of Uyghurs that they have in China. And there are 2 entities in this world that have attacked me, the Communist Party of China and these rascals who are hiding here in Manza. I'm sorry to get a bit emotional here and to interrupt you, but their character assassination shows the evil nature of this organization. And they are so evil that they do not even dare. I have challenged them many times in TV. I've challenged even their cult leader, Maryam Rajavi. I've told her, come and debate me. These people hate journalism. These people hate freedom of speech. These people are totalitarian idiots. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead with your.
That's fine. I understand your feelings. From my point of view, I see that inside Albania, MEK are forging documents which say they are working with the CIA. And they are, in doing so, they are admitting that they are agents of the CIA. And so by the same token, then they say all their critics are agents of the Iranian regime. And this is all utter nonsense, and it's a distraction. It is misdirection, trying to draw attention away from what it is that we're actually saying about them. If they say if they do character assassination of journalists like yourself, Jazexhi, myself as an activist, it draws attention away from what we're actually saying. And what we're talking about, all of us, is what is happening inside this organization to the members, to what I call the first victims of the organization, and also what MEK is doing to Albanian society and politics, and how come your government, Edi Rama, Prime Minister Edi Rama, has given permission to this group to build an extraterritorial camp where they have encased about 2,000 people who are effectively enslaved, and he has given MEK the power of life and death over these people. Is he not running a government? Is he not in charge of this country? Why is this happening? And that's what MEK are desperate to distract from. They do not want these questions to be asked. But it doesn't matter how many times they say so-and-so is an agent, this one is an agent. It doesn't take the questions away. The questions remain, and they must be answered. Somebody has to answer, what is MEK doing in Albania, and what damage is it causing to the country, to the politics, and the people there?
Well, we have a very corrupt government here with our prime minister, whose previous interior minister was even convicted, or is being convicted, about his relations with drug traffickers. And as you can understand, I mean, Albania is a puppet state of the United States, and some American senators and politicians have asked Albania to become a second Afghanistan, like in Afghanistan in the era of Mullah Omar and the Taliban's, when they were hosting Al-Qaeda. And this is what I say in Albanian medias when I am there and I talk about MEK. We have become a second Afghanistan. If Mullah Omar was hosting Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, we today are hosting this desperate old ex-terrorist lunatics who every day they break Albanian laws, they break the Albanian penal code. I've made these questions to our previous interior minister in a debate that we had in January in Top Channel here in Albania. And I even asked our previous interior minister, his name was Dritan Demir. I told him, sir, you have been minister of interior here in Albania. Do you know what is happening here with this paramilitary camp that we have? This lunatic lady who has this organization, Maryam Rajavi, and her commanders and her jihadis, they every day break the law of Albania. They are, first of all, they are foreign fighters. According to Albanian penal code, if you are a foreign fighter, if you belong to Jabhat al-Nusra, to ISIS, etc., and you are caught in Albania, you go immediately to jail from 10 to 15 years. And secondly, they make everyday calls for a war and jihad against foreign countries, in particular against Iran. If me, myself, as an Albanian citizen, make a call to topple Boris Johnson, that you have in UK, if I say, brothers, we have to make regime change against Her Majesty the Queen of London, and to topple this government and to install a republic in the United Kingdom, I'm going to immediately be arrested and sent to jail as a terrorist, and I will be jailed for minimum 15 years in prison. Now, we have these people here who break the law, break international conventions, they break the Albanian law, but our government does nothing about it. I've spoken to a number of Albanian MPs about them, and the answer that they have given to me is, Olsi, Americans have told us to host them here, and we're going to host them here.
Of course.
So what is happening here, these people, they have, even though they are not Albanian nationals, they have more rights than we have. They can break the law of Albania, and moreover, they can even keep slaves. I mean, I have investigated these people, and I've spoken with many defectors who have saved themselves by abandoning this lunatic terrorist cultish organization. And the stories that we hear are unimaginable. I mean, you guys in the United Kingdom, God forbid, if, let us say, your husband will not let you go out of your home for 1 hour, he will go to jail. In Albania, me too. But here in Albania, in Manas, in Europe, we have an organization that keeps under lockdown some thousands of radicalized soldiers, and Europe does nothing because they're afraid of the Americans. And we have a quisling government here, which obeys to...
Okay, Olsi, this is exactly why Albania was chosen, because of the corruption, the lack of proper accountability system and such like.
Yeah.
And America, the previous administration in America had to deal with them, and so they did. And so they took them out of Iraq, brought them to Albania. They should have been de-radicalized, but of course the Trump administration called a halt on that, and they said, no, we'll keep these guys. And so you had Senator McCain coming, you had John Bolton coming, you had Rudy Giuliani coming, and this group belongs to them as a sort of useful tool in their anti-Iran regime change agenda. So of course they were going to, find a place for them where they would be supported. Now, the only other government in any country anywhere that supported MEK was Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And he used this group as gladiators. They were literally fighting Iran on his behalf, but they weren't being paid, they weren't being rewarded in any way. They were gladiators. And the way that they kept them, he kept these people under control by sending any of their defectors to Abu Ghraib prison. So that is what he did to keep these people under control. Now, the Eddie Rama, and in fact, the Prime Minister Berisha before this is the only governmental support ever given to MEK. The other support is below that level. It is, individuals, countries in back channels supporting them, whether it's paying them or giving them political freedom and such like. But this is this governmental support. And how do we know this? Because the MEK in Albania are denied identities, papers, work permits. They're not given money. They're not supported in any way. This is a government responsibility. The government is hosting them in manners. Why are they not making sure that these people are properly identified? So every one of them has an individual identity paper. Why are they not given proper possibility of working? The reason is, obviously, the American agenda is to keep this group to serve its purposes. And Maryam Rajavi is living off the back of 2,000 slaves clicking in their click farm now. So they've gone from being gladiators, actually fighting, to actually now a propaganda outfit. And they're sitting in Albania, working for Americans, and yet the Albanian people have to pay the price. And the price that they're paying is that this group, as you were explaining, is beyond touch, beyond the law. They disobey, they break the laws. They don't obey any laws except their own. Now, I wrote an article which was published in Responsible Statecraft, a new platform, and I put it to the government there that MEK are now in this coronavirus pandemic, in the crisis that's engulfing every country almost on the planet. They pose a health risk to Albania. Why? Because, as Jerzy Fanasi has explained to me, the Ministry of Health in Albania has no jurisdiction whatsoever inside the camp. The local Manas health authorities have no jurisdiction inside the camp. They don't even register the MEK camp as an entity. So how do we know if people in there have got coronavirus? How do we know they haven't got it? How do we know that if they come and go in you know, from Tirana and back, that they're not going to spread it? We don't know. We don't know.
This is what I said for an interview that I had for Counterpunch or maybe Balkan Post. What I mentioned in that interview is that since MEK has not registered its jihadis with Albanian National Registry, we have no count of how many of them died. And we know from previous deaths that have happened in this camp, MEK, thanks to the American support, have refused and has not allowed and does not allow Albanian authorities and the police to do a post-mortem examination of the people who died there. So let us say if I am a MEK soldier and Maryam Rajavi want to get rid of me, she can poison me and or give me a bullet, whatever, or drown me. And then they will bury me. And Albanian authorities, they have no right to go into their camp and to examine why these people are dying. If I die, for example, or my wife dies, Albanian police are going to come to my home because this is the rule that we have in this country.
Of course.
They're going to do a post-mortem examination. They're going to check why we died, and they're going to write a report. Was my death because of coronavirus? Was my death because somebody shot me? Did I have a heart attack? Or what was the reason? There should be a report. But these people, they can die as much as they want, and there is no accountability about these people.
Yeah.
And if I can interrupt you, I just want to make you a question. These days, we have seen a petition being initiated by an Iranian NGO called Nejat Society. And this petition is asking the Albanian government to allow the families of these jihadi soldiers to take visas and come to Albania and meet their loved ones. Now, the situation that we have here in Albania at this very moment is very similar with the situation in Syria with al-Hol ISIS camp that we have there. We have many Albanian families here who want to go to Syria and rescue their loved ones or even meet them, the ISIS brides and soldiers and children. But it is impossible for Albanians to go to this al-Hol camp and meet and rescue their relatives. Situation is very similar here in Albania. The Albanian authorities, they refuse visas to the families of these Iranian jihadis that we have in here, because in my opinion, Maryam Rajavi doesn't want the families to come here and to meet their loved ones and to even rescue them. And since this petition started from Nejat Society, MEK, it seems, is going into a panic mode through their fake news portals. They're making even articles. One article was with the title, Iranian regime is campaigning for Albanian entry visas for its terrorists. So what is happening is Maryam Rajavi is describing as terrorists the mothers and the fathers and the wives and the children of its jihadis who are there. Can you enlighten us a bit more? What is going on?
Yes, the petition started 2 weeks ago. Nejat Society, which you mentioned, the NGO, which launched this petition, is the representative body for over 1,000 families of MEK members. And these are families who have been denied contact with their families because that's the policy that MEK has inside the organization, forced divorce, separation of families. They don't allow people to contact the outside world. So the families have raised a petition basically because of the coronavirus, that they're worried, as we all are. You know, if you have a parent in a care home, as I have, I want to know what's happening in there. I want to know if the care home is going to be looking after her, protecting her, and such like. Now, MEK, when they were working with Saddam Hussein and people got killed in their battles, they didn't tell their families. They didn't inform them, let alone, you know, like a normal army, you provide compensation for the person who's died to their family. They didn't even tell them. And so many families were totally unaware about the fate of their loved ones, whether it was their children or their brother, sister, even the parents of these members, these people, the families. So when in 2003, the Saddam Hussein was overthrown and Iranians finally had a way to travel to Iraq, you know, even although there was a war going on, the pilgrims started to go to the Shia shrines. They were going to Najaf and Karbala and Samarra. And so the families thought, well, you know, we're going to go to the camp and we're going to go and rescue our families. So that was back in 2004-05, and so Nejat was created as a kind of, you know, like an umbrella organization for these families, and they have been trying ever since to go and get news, have contact. You had Mr. Mohammadi there trying to look for his daughter, Somaye. That was you know, it caused a big scandal in Albania a couple of years back. There's a guy in, I think, Norway now, who's made a film saying, you know, please let me talk to my mom. You know, he's about 30 years old. His mother's still with MEK. All he wants is just to have contact and say, how are you? Is everything okay? And the families have made it clear right from the beginning that they have no interest in you know, the kind of politics of it. If their family members want to continue with MEK, that's fine, as long as they're doing it willingly. But unless they have contact, unless they can actually talk to them face to face, how do they know that these people are freely making these choices? Now, what the families, you know, in fact, you're saying about ISIS and the families there, a lot of organizations which are sort of trying to de-radicalize extremists, whether it's right-wing extremists, Islamic extremists, all these people, what they have found is that one of the key elements to this are the families of the extremists who have been pushed away and deliberately separated out. Once the person gets back in touch with their family and the kind of connections which existed since their childhood are rekindled and kind of the relationship is allowed to grow, the attachment is back together again, then the extremist agenda becomes less and less and less. And in many cases, you know, that is a key stage to de-radicalizing extremists. The person who knows this better than anybody else at all is Maryam Rajavi. And they are in a panic, as you suggested, about this petition, because the petition in 2 weeks gathered, it's nearing 10,000 signatures now, after 2 weeks. Now, this is, as I said, 1,000 families are supported by Nejat. The other 9,000 people are ordinary people who can see as clearly as daylight that this organization is denying basic human rights to the members, and it's denying basic human rights to the families. And we come back to the question, why? Why? And the Mojahedeen will do anything, including labeling us as agents, anything to avoid having to answer this question. Now, my question is not to Maryam Rajavi, because I don't expect her to do anything. She's a cult leader, she's a terrorist leader, she's not accountable to anyone. I don't care about her. She's just a parasite living off the unpaid, you know, slaves to do the bidding of America. My question is, Prime Minister Eddie Rama, Why? Why are you supporting this group? Yes, okay, America wants them, but this is so wrong. It is so much against the national interests of your country, of your citizens. Why? What are you doing this for? You know, surely you can deal with these 2,000 people. And the way to deal with them is to, whatever the agenda that MEK have to deny them a possibility to leave, you must provide it for them. You must allow them to leave freely. Give them some money to live on. Which refugees all over the world, you know, they need money to live on because they're refugees. Give them somewhere to live. Give them some work permit to go and get a job. Give them identity papers so that they can actually open a bank account and start to live as ordinary citizens. Until you do all these things, or any of them, the situation is that Prime Minister Edi Rama of Albania is complicit in the deliberate enslavement of 2,000 people in the country. Well, that's what the families are objecting. You know, they want to come and free their relatives. And the way they do that is they need an entry visa to get to Albania, which has been denied them, and the ability to just go there and open the camp, open the doors of the camp and let people meet with each other. And that's what this petition is asking.
My wife runs a legal office here in Albania, and we know stories even of European citizens who can enter in Albania without visa, but who happen to be relatives of these MEK jihadis that we have in here. And whenever these people come, we see MEK does its utmost to attack even these European citizens, and have even pushed Albanian police to go and intimidate these people. And we have met some of these people. We also know the history of Mustafa Mohammadi that you just mentioned, and his wife Rubabe Mohammadi, who have their daughter Somaya Mohammadi being kept in isolation, brainwashed, not allowed to go out of the camp. And even Mustafa and his wife, who were Canadian citizens, were intimidated by the Albanian police after being pushed and demanded by MEK commanders, people like Behzat Safari, Ahmad Taba, and Gila Dehim, on orders of Maryam Rajavi, to expel them from Albania. Now, the thing that I do not understand is this. Number one, why is Maryam Rajavi so horrified, even from people who come from Canada, from Europe? You are a British citizen, for the God's sake. I mean, if you were to be a dangerous person, a person conspiring with the Iranian regime to destroy the planet, etc., the British would have arrested you. But I mean, the question that I have is, they are so obsessed and they hate so much anyone who approaches their camp. And we've seen this, what they have done. They have attacked the BBC, they have attacked journalists from the Channel 4 and from the New York Times and from everybody. And there is something in their mind that I cannot understand, and probably you could explain to us, because you know these people better than us. I mean, why these people fear everybody? And moreover, that I mentioned in my interview that I had with Balkan Post a few weeks ago, was that while MEK claims that we represent the Iranian people, we are going to save the Iranian people from the mullahs, they do the life horrible to the Iranians here in Albania. Since the coming of MEK here in Albania, Maryam Rajavi did all it could to destroy the diplomatic relations between Albania and Iran. She pushed Albanian government to expel the Iranian ambassador, 3 diplomats. She closed many Iranian schools and philosophical institutions in here. She destroyed the Bektashi communities and other Sufi groups' relations with the holy places of Shia Islam. And moreover, Albania in this very moment is a no-go area for Iranians. So if you have some connection with Iran, you can be an Iranian citizen of Iran, but you can be an Iranian American, an Iranian European. MEK has turned Albania into a hell for any Iranian. And my irony that I was doing with my interview that I had with Balkan Post a few weeks ago was that while MEK claims to be supported by the Iranians, they have done life horrible to the Iranians here in Albania. If you are an Iranian citizen in Albania, our government is going to expel you from the country, is going to close your bank account, because for MEK, a good Iranian is a dead Iranian. Every Iranian is an agent of the regime, agent of the mullahs, and Albania has become a no-go area for Iranians. So can you tell me what is wrong with these people? Why they hate the Iranians so much?
So, of course, one thing that is kind of the bottom line with MEK is they talk an awful lot of nonsense. They just talk utter nonsense all the time. So, you know, what they say is practically irrelevant to the outside world. First of all, every Iranian in the world knows this group and hates this group. There's no doubt about that. So when MEK claim that they represent Iranians, it's just for their own internal consumption. So there's two elements to their situation. One is how they are, you know, you're saying, why are they panicking so much about the families? That's one element, which I'll explain in a bit. But the other thing is, you know, how come they're sort of sitting in the middle of a sort of Eastern European country, as it were, Southeast Europe, screaming and shouting against Iran. You know, until MEK arrived, there was no problem with Iran at all. And so they have, as you say, messed up the whole kind of foreign policy and internal policy towards Iranians.
Excuse me, not only against Iran, they scream against the medias. They have attacked BBC, sure. Channel 4, the European Union, Mogherini. They attack every European politician who wants to do something with Iran. I mean, they are hysterical. I'm sorry to interrupt. But...
Of course they are, because that's the narrative which they've used to keep their members under control for 40 years. Is a very black and white version of the world. So that we're right and everyone else is wrong. And so our version, that means MEK, Rajavi, Masoud Rajavi, now Maryam Rajavi has taken over. Their version of events is that only we can say what should happen about Iran. Only we have the knowledge to, you know, tell the world this is what the Iranian government is like. And it's utter nonsense. But the purpose of that is to keep feeding the membership with these lies and this deception and this kind of front to explain why they're sitting there in a click farm at the age of 65, 70 years old, not being paid, living on basic, you know, sustenance. You know, the food, the medicine they have is very basic in there. And they justify that to the membership by shouting and screaming and ranting to the whole world about how the Iranian regime is bad, and anyone who criticizes us, which, as you're saying, is the media and politicians and people like myself and activists, anyone who criticizes us is the enemy. So it is a red line that they've created around their organization. And so anybody who comes close to that red line, whether, as you say, politicians, media, is immediately attacked very, very badly. Now, we had a couple of cases in Europe. You know, you're talking about the European Union. The European Parliament, Maryam Rajavi was coming and going, having meetings until a couple of years back, and in one of those meetings a couple of ex-members kind of went and they wanted to go and talk to the MEPs and explain to them about you know, MEK conditions, how the membership are being treated, and they got beaten up. So MEK supporters actually came out just in front of the parliament and started to physically beat up these people. And the parliament said, well, we can't have this. We cannot have MEK bringing violence into Europe. The other thing that happened was an alleged bomb plot, which started in, I believe, Belgium, and 2 people were supposedly taking a bomb down to Paris to blow up one of the MEK's big rallies, which they had every year. And they caught them and nothing happened. Fortunately, nobody got hurt. But they traced back all these activities, and it's still very, very vague about, you know, who is involved at what level and who did this. But what is absolutely clear to every single intelligence and security service in Europe, throughout Europe, is that this group has brought violence to the doorstep of Europe for no reason whatsoever. No matter who did it, who's, you know, that's irrelevant. The point is that the front line against Iran should not be in Europe. But by the same token, the front line against Iran should not be in Albania. But it is. It is now. Why have MEK brought the front line of America's fight against Iran to your country? What is that about? What is wrong with your government that has been allowed to happen?
This is the question that I make to my government. I told them, why you brought those lunatics here? We could have sent them, if America loves them, we could have sent them to Texas or Alaska.
Exactly,
or I don't know, somewhere in... Yeah.
Why doesn't America take them? Exactly. Now, what's happened is that because of this violence that came into Europe, Maryam Rajavi has been politely, expected and pushed to go and set up a base in Albania. Her headquarters is now not in Auvers-sur-Oise, just outside Paris. Her headquarters is now in Manza or in Tirana or wherever she lives.
Did the French expel her?
I would be careful with my wording, but she lives now in Albania.
Good for France. Thank you, France. You got rid of them and you brought them to us. Thank you very much.
And this is a major problem, you know, because Rama is saying, okay, well, the Americans are telling us to do this and we have to keep them, and they're paying us perhaps to keep them, whatever it is that's going on there. But on the other hand, Albania has ambitions to join the European Union. Whether people agree or not, that's irrelevant. But the point is that those people who want to join the European Union, they must understand that if you throw terrorists out, you're not going to get them back through the back door, are you? You're not going to say, okay, Albania, you've got this bunch of terrorists, which we don't want, but okay, just join up. It's never going to happen. Never. You won't get membership of the EU while you've got MEK in Albania. It won't happen.
Now, sorry, I'm having some noise in the background. Many European medias who contact me, but even American medias who contact me and ask me about MEK in Albania, a question that they make to me is, who funds them? Do you have any idea about that? My humble opinion is, I believe, because to run MEK for Maryam Rajavi, I know from some defectors that each and every soldier of them gets around 500 euros a month. And by my calculation, I think that the organization to run needs at least 1.5 million euros a month. So MEK claims that Iranian diaspora funds them, which is whole, it's a lie, and we know they're professional liars. And my humble guess is that they are being sponsored by a state because they need the state budget to run that. Albania doesn't give them a penny. Albanian politicians, they only take money from them, like Pandeli, Maiko, and others. They sold them cheap. They bought cheap lands and they sold to them for more money. I mean, they were brought here to be screwed up by our politicians. They saw them as as a desperate terrorist that they could milk them and take money out of them, because this is the logic of our government. But now the question, I mean, and my humble guess is that it should be Saudi Arabia supporting them, giving them money, because they need a state budget. What do you think? Who is sponsoring them?
Okay, so I'll just jump straight to what you're saying, that they are, the combatants are paid 500 euros a month, did you say, or dollars?
Yes.
But,
yes.
Be sure that the actual members don't get that money.
Yeah, they do not get. Maryam Rajavi gets it.
Yeah, of course.
They take only rice and medicine. She takes the money.
So when Masoud Rajavi was in charge of MEK, he since disappeared. 2003, he disappeared and hasn't been heard of since. MEK were, of course, paid for by Saddam Hussein. You know, they were his private army. He provided their camp, he provided their arms, he provided the budget for actually running the organization and doing Western propaganda and doing all the kind of things that they were doing to promote the anti-Iran agenda, which he had. Now, MEK were very clever at using passports that didn't correlate to people, and saying to Saddam, okay, we've got this 8,000 people in this camp. And of course they hadn't. You know, when the Americans went there, they had 3,800, and yet they charged their sponsors, you know, with, yes, we've got this double the amount. So they were being overpaid, essentially. Now, the combination we saw then was that Saddam was the paymaster, of course, and their work was alongside Mukhabarat of Iraq, the secret services there, and the Mujahedeen were the gladiators. Now, in 2017, I believe it was, Prince Turki of Saudi Arabia made a surprise appearance. And he, of course, is the former intelligence chief of Saudi Arabia. And he greeted Maryam Rajavi, hello, how are you, and such like. And it became clear, I think, to the whole world that here is a new boss, here is the new sponsor, here is the new paymaster, and here are the people who want you to work for them. And that work is now no longer the fighting, they don't have the guns. To be clear, a terrorist who doesn't have the opportunity to commit terrorism, it doesn't mean they're not terrorists. You know, the people sitting in the camps in Syria and Iraq who are ISIS members, they don't have opportunity to commit terrorism because they're in a camp, but it doesn't mean that they're not terrorists. They are. So MEK, sitting in Albania, don't have the opportunity, but they're still in their mindset, in their radicalization, radicalized extremist views, beliefs, are terrorists. And the people who are supporting them, yes, Saudi Arabia, it's money, you know, America, politics. We've got Giuliani, we've got John Bolton, who you know, until very recently were right behind them. Now Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, is retweeting the kind of nonsense which Maryam Rajavi's camp is disseminating. You know, sending out all this disinformation, propaganda. Donald Trump himself, you know, retweeted some rubbish from the fake account of Heshmat Alavi, which has been, you know, outed 2 years ago as a completely fake account run by MEK. And so, you know, they're getting the political support from there. They're getting money. Yes, I would not say Saudi Arabia isn't pouring money into them, because they have lots of money sloshing around. They don't know what to do with it except do what the Americans want. And of course, Albania, Prime Minister Edi Rama, is giving them the logistical support which Saddam Hussein used to give. You know, he's now taken the place of this monster in Iraq. And if he thinks he hasn't, and if Albanians think he hasn't, look a bit more carefully about what is actually going on there.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
You mentioned about, you know, the media. yes, I can understand if maybe Albanian media has, been bought, coerced, intimidated. There's all sorts of ways that MEK use to force their agenda on people, and
they have intimidated the media here, and
of course. But
in
then
the previous years, our media were interrogating them. Now everybody is afraid because
afraid of them.
Many TV owners that I've spoken to, they have told me, Olsi, when I give this documentary or interview about MEK, one was Ora News, for example, where you gave an interview, and after you gave the interview to Ora News, Nejat Society and other jihadi commanders, they had gone and they had met the owner of Ora News and told him, we are CIA, so you better delete her interview. And many owners of the medias here in Albania, they are very careful with MEK because, many of them, they have financial problems, how they made their money. Americans are investigating everyone here. So they don't want to end up in jail or to have their license being removed. And MEK has a free hand in Albania. But thanks to Allah, we have BBC, we have New York Times, we have Channel 4, we have al-Jazeera, we have international medias who are interrogating them because they have managed to silence everyone here. And we have only 5 minutes left, and I want to make you a final question. Now, this Nejat Society is doing this petition. I just saw their petition online now. They have around 9,000 signatures. They are going to send it to Rama, the Prime Minister. I think they already sent it. Our Prime Minister is going to forward it to the US Embassy that we have here. We have a very fine supreme leader here called the US Ambassador, Yuri Kim. She is a Korean, but she's American. And she gives the final verdict, the final fatwa, what to do. So, with 100%, she's going to tell to Edi Rama, just forget it. And nothing will happen. Edi Rama is not going to issue visas for these Iranian families. This is my opinion, my guess. So what do you think? What is Nejat Society aiming to achieve with this? Because, MEK, the first thing from the moment that Nejat Society made probably this petition, the first thing probably they called somebody in Washington and told them, Iranian agents, Iranian regime is coming to kill us. And they probably sent one email to Edi Rama and told him, do nothing. What do you think is next?
Okay, so I can't answer for Edi Rama whether he wants to actually defy the American edicts or not. That's entirely, out of our hands. What Nejat has done is draw the world's attention, because the people who are interested in Iran follow these things, whether they're in Europe, America, or elsewhere. And so it's like opening up the Pandora's box. It's the worms are not going to go back in the box. All this information is spreading and spreading and spreading, and people are becoming more and more aware of what is actually happening. Now, I possibly agree with you that Edi Rama won't be giving visas because the Americans will tell him not to. MEK, yes, they have this sort of step escalation of how they resist being challenged. So what happens first of all? Yes, they attack their critics, like myself, like yourself, anyone who speaks about them. And then when it comes to the media, yes, they you're talking about al-Jazeera and Channel 4 and BBC and such like, and these Western media, New York Times wrote a very good piece. They do the demonization, the character assassination and such like. If the wolf comes to the door of MEK and eventually somebody comes and says, no, we've got to break you up and, prevent you from doing these things, which is what happened in Iraq, they will next step threaten mass suicide. I promise you. They will go and tell the Edi Rama's messengers that if you come near us, we'll have a mass suicide, we'll all kill ourselves and you'll be responsible. And that is how they escalate their resistance, as it were, to these interventions. So that's why it took so many years to get MEK out of Iraq. You know, in 2003 they were rounded up, and it took until 2016 for the Iraqi government to get rid of them, because they are so resistant to interference. So even if tomorrow Eddie Rama said, okay, let's go and help these people, you know, free them, let's get the families in and we'll go and sort them out, MEK will come up with their threats, and they will threaten mass suicide, and that will again delay what is the inevitable breakup of this group. It's, for one thing, half of them are going to be so old and they'll die anyway. If coronavirus doesn't kill them, old age will. And it's unsustainable. It is literally unsustainable in the current circumstances. But okay. Sadly...
And we have to cut because the
sure.
minute is ending. I just want to thank you very much for your thoughts. I hope to have you again on my channel and to interview you. And for our viewers, they have to be sure after our interview, MEK is going to attack me and you, and they are going to say, the agents of the Iranian regime, they took orders from the mullahs to speak against us, the freedom fighters of Maryam Rajavi. And I welcome.
And as we know, that's irrelevant, and the questions still remain. Why?
And I welcome their insults and attacks. They have attacked BBC, New York Times, Channel 4, al-Jazeera, the free media. But I want to promise something to Her Majesty, the cultish leader, Maryam Rajavi, that she is never going to silence us. She is not going to intimidate us. If she wants to go and kill us, she is welcomed about it. If they can afford killing journalists like ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Jabhat al-Nusra does in the Middle East, they're welcome to come and kill us. But otherwise, what I promise to those psychopaths of MEK who are invading a land in my country, Albania, who have brought such a horrible black spot and trouble to my country, who are breaking the laws, who are doing a terrorist activity in this country, that they're never going to silence us. I hope and pray that the Albanian government changes its mind and allows the families of these MEK jihadis to come in Albania to meet their wives, their children, their mothers, their fathers, whatever. And I hope and pray that our good American rulers change their mind and start to de-radicalize these people and to turn these people into a civilian life and do what Mustafa Mohammadi was telling to his daughter when he was here in 2018, and his wife Rubab, when they were telling to Sumaya, to their daughter, they were telling to their daughter, okay, our daughter, you want to stay with this jihadi organization, no problem. You want to fight against Iran, no problem. You want to engage yourself with what MEK does, no problem. But at least follow a civilian life. Get out of this lockdown, of this crazy quarantine. Guys, for those who see us, we are nowadays in this coronavirus quarantine and we're going crazy. Imagine if you'll be quarantined by Maryam Rajavi for 20 or 30 years. So what Rubab and Mustafa Mohammadi were telling to his daughter, okay, you want to fight against Iran, good for you, but at least come out of the camp, get married, have life, get a university degree, find a job, live a normal human life, and then you do anything you want. But Maryam Rajavi doesn't allow that, because if she allows her members to get out and get free and to breathe free air, she is afraid from not coronavirus infection, but from the infection of freedom, the infection of democracy, the infection of being a human and not being a robot. And this is what this cultish leader do not want. And thank you very much indeed. I hope to have you again in my show. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.